The call that changed everything. The night was golden. 100 lights glimmered under the glass ceiling of the ballroom. Violins played softly, and the smell of roses mixed with champagne. Everything was perfect. Everything. Until the phone rang. But that moment came much later. Ethan Cole first met Grace Miller in the emergency room of St. Joseph's Hospital in Seattle. She had brought her best friend after a car accident. Nothing life-threatening. Just a broken arm and a lot of panic. Ethan was the attending surgeon that night, still in his residency, exhausted but sharp as a blade. "Is she going to be okay?" Grace asked, her voice trembling. "She'll be fine," Ethan replied calmly. "A clean fracture. I'll fix it up, promise." He smiled, and Grace noticed the faint tiredness in his eyes. The kind that comes from sating people at 3 a.m. and pretending you're made of stone. When he came back an hour later, her friend was fine, but Grace was still there, waiting. "Doctors usually disappear after saving the day," she said. "And designers usually don't hang around hospitals," he answered. That was the start. Coffee turned into dinner. Dinner turned into weekends away from the city. Grace, a freelance interior designer who hated hospitals, suddenly found herself reading medical journals just to understand him better. Ethan, who used to live between operating tables and vending machine dinners, started buying flowers, awkwardly, like someone who'd only seen it done in movies. He proposed to her a year later on a rainy November evening. They were sitting on the hood of his car overlooking Puget Sound. He handed her a small velvet box and said simply, "Grace, I've spent my whole life trying to keep people alive, but with you, I finally learned what living feels like. Will you marry me?" She said yes. The wedding was a fairy tale, a big white tent on the shore, jazz band playing Sinatra, and the smell of sea salt in the air. Grace looked like something out of a dream, and Ethan couldn't stop staring. When the time came for their first dance, the lights dimmed and the world shrank down to the two of them. "Ladies and gentlemen," the host announced, "the first dance of the new Mr. and Mrs. Cole." Ethan took her hand, pulled her close, and whispered, "You know, I almost didn't make it here. The hospital called 3 times this morning. You'd better not leave me tonight," she said with a playful smirk. He smiled. Not a chance. But then his phone buzzed. At first he ignored it. Then it buzzed again. He glanced at the screen, ER, code crimson. He froze. Grace saw the color drain from his face. "Ethan?" he answered. The voice on the other end was tense. "Urgent. Dr. Cole, it's a 12-year-old girl. Head trauma. We need you now. You're the only one who can do this." He hesitated. The music still played. The guests swayed. Grace's hand trembled in his. "Ethan," she whispered, "don't you dare." But his heart was already gone. "I have to go," he said, his voice breaking. "You're leaving me? On our wedding?" "She's dying, Grace. I can't just... Then what about us?" He looked at her, pain written all over his face. "I'll come back, I swear." And he ran, out of the tent into the night, his tuxedo half undone, leaving behind the stunned crowd and a bride standing alone under a string of fading lights. Grace stood frozen, her eyes burning with disbelief. Then suddenly someone appeared beside her, Ryan Mitchell, her old high school sweetheart, who'd come to the wedding out of courtesy. He gently took her glass from her trembling hand. "I always said he'd put work before you," Ryan murmured. "Not tonight, Ryan," she said sharply. But he didn't stop. "You deserve someone who stays, not someone who runs every time the phone rings." Hours passed. The band stopped playing. The guests drifted away, and Grace, still in her wedding dress, sat by the shore, alone, angry, heartbroken. Meanwhile, Ethan stood in the OR under the harsh light. The girl's pulse was weak, scalpel, pressure dropping. He barely breathed, every second felt eternal. Finally, a heartbeat, then another. "Got it," he whispered. When he walked out, it was dawn. His hands were shaking, his heart empty. He saved a life, but lost something else. He called Grace. No answer. He drove to her apartment, still in his blood-stained scrubs, eyes hollow. She wasn't there. For days she didn't speak to him. She packed a bag and left for her sister's place in Portland. Ryan started visiting her, bringing coffee, talking softly about starting over. But Grace couldn't sleep. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Ethan's face as he said, "I'll come back." She hated that she still loved him. Then one night, her phone buzzed. Unknown number. She answered and heard Ethan's voice, weak, exhausted. "Grace, I got into a car accident on the way to the hospital. I'm okay, just some stitches, but I needed to hear your voice." Her heart stopped. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because I didn't want you to feel sorry for me. I just wanted you to know. I never left you. I left a party to save someone's tomorrow." She didn't say anything. But that night, she drove back to Seattle. It was raining, like the night he proposed. She found him sitting on the hospital steps, his arm in a sling, still in scrubs. He looked up, stunned. "Grace?" She stood there, drenched, mascara running, heart wide open. "I came to tell you that I hate you," she said, breathless. He nodded softly. "I deserve that." "And I love you," she added. He blinked. "You what?" She took a step closer. "Because you did what you were meant to do. And I forgot who you were when I fell in love with you. I fell in love with a man who saves lives. Not one who cancels dinner." He laughed, half crying, half in disbelief. "I thought I lost you." "You almost did," she whispered. "But love like this, you don't just walk away from." He reached for her hand, the same hand he'd held on that dance floor. "Come on," she said, smiling faintly. "Let's finish our first dance. No hospitals, no phones, no running away." He pulled her close, right there, under the rain, in front of the hospital entrance. The city lights shimmered in the puddles. The rain fell softly, like applause. A year later, the girl Ethan saved, her name was Lily, walked for the first time since the surgery. Grace was there, watching with tears in her eyes. Ethan stood beside her, hand in hand. Lily smiled and said, "Mom says you're the reason I'm alive." Ethan shook his head. "No, kiddo, I'm just the one who showed up." Grace looked at him, really looked. That night, as they danced again under the same sky, she whispered, "Maybe that's what love is, Ethan, showing up even when it's hard." He kissed her forehead, "And never letting a call be the end of us."